All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiment. We got another week, another deck tech. Away we go. Tonight we got something a little bit different, something really off the beaten path. We've got Odric Blood Cursed. So this was the Odric from, I think it was Crimson Vow, and they turned Odric from being a mono white creature, which you see in, for instance, over here. We have Odric Lunarch Marshal, and they turned him into this this Boros colored vampire, which is kind of an unfortunate way for the guy to go. But anyway, so let's read all what Odric cares about. So 1 red, white for a 3/3 legendary creature vampire soldier. When Odric Blood Curse enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities among flying, first strike, double strike, death strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance found among creatures you control. This cares about your keyword soup on your cards. All right, so it's going to spit out a bunch of blood tokens. And so the idea behind this deck is that you can take advantage of the artifact tokens you're putting into play, or better yet, we're going to try and make use of going wide by making lots of bodies and using that as a way to secure victory. So let's talk about how we get there. So Odric's not overly expensive, but you're in Boros, so it's a little bit tricky to get your mana onto the battlefield. So we've got Arcane Signet, we have a Mox Amber, we have a Marble Diamond, we have a Sol Ring, and we have a Commander Sphere. You could probably run more. Now, the beauty, you don't really need to run more because you're running, because your Odric's only 3 mana and he's not overly threatening, people don't tend to want to remove him as much. The other piece, too, is when you make blood tokens, you can now use that as sort of to cycle your way through your deck and then to go and dig up things that you want to go and use. So the cycling is super useful to discard things you may not need in order to get stuff back and find the lands you need. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get as many artifact tokens onto the battlefield with keyword abilities. So let's talk about cards that care about keyword abilities. So we've got Adult Gold Dragon. So 3 red, white for a 4/3 dragon with flying, lifelink, and haste. So that's got 3 on them. We have Rograk, son of Roga. 0, it's a legendary creature, Kobold Warrior. And then first strike, menace, and trample. All right. So Rograk gets played lots in CEDH, but in this case, we care about the keywords on him. Aurelia, Law Above, 3 red, white for a 4/4 legendary angel, flying, vigilance, haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia, Law Above deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. You're probably not attacking and triggering those other 2 abilities with 3 and 5 creatures, but, it's kind of nice to have. You want the keyword abilities. Swiftblade Vindicator, red and a white for a 1/1. Human Soldier, double strike, vigilance, trample. Wojek Investigator, 2 and a white for a 2/4 Angel Detective with flying and vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. Since you're in Boros, you're probably going to be short for cards. This is probably going to make a bunch of clues, and that's going to help you cycle through your deck. Angel of Destiny, 3 white for a 2/6 Angel Cleric with flying and double strike. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. That's scary text. It usually just results in some life gain to help pad your life total, but then the keyword abilities are kind of handy. We have Lone Rider, so 1 and a white for a 1/1 with first strike, lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, transform Lone Rider. And on the back, it turns into a werewolf, and it that rides as 1. It's got first strike, trample, and lifelink. All right, and then we have Odric Lunarch Marshal. At the beginning, it's a 3/3 legendary creature, Human Soldier. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. The same can be said true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So you can give a lot of your creatures extra abilities if you have Odric on the battlefield. Kind of neat. Particularly since the 2 Odrics are both keyword matters cards. They're kind of interesting. All right, now let's talk about how we are going to else get other bodies onto the battlefield, go wide, so to speak, and take advantage of all those things we're going to find and how we're going to get our opponents dead. All right, so we're going to be making lots of bodies because you're playing Boros. So, well, we're going to make Krenko Mob Boss. Seems good. We're going to have a Hordling Outburst, makes more goblins. Let's turn a blood token into more goblins. We have Kuldotha Rebirth. Release the gremlins. Let's kill some artifacts and make some 2/2 goblins. Outlaws Merriment makes something every turn. Goblin Warrens makes more goblins all the time. Animpa Kal makes more tokens. Elsbeth's Son's Champion, she's just awesome. Makes tokens, and then you're going to end up, giving them +2/+2 and flying if they don't kill it. Krenko, another Krenko, makes more goblins. Horn of Valhalla, let's make more dudes. CGN Commander, let's make some more dudes, more goblins. Goblins for days. All right, so with all those bodies on the battlefield, we're going to be playing Impact Tremors, and we're going to be playing War Leader's Call. All right, so these two simple abilities make sure that you're going to get damage through and ding your opponent in the face. All right, we also have other ways. If you're making artifact tokens, we're going to be making Reckless Fireweaver, Hedron Detonator, and Ingenious Artillerist are also all ways that you're going to deal damage to your opponents by artifacts coming in and out of play. So, super useful. Crime Novelist is also another one that is super good because when you sacrifice an artifact, you put a symbol counter and make a red. So you can go, if you have a bunch of blood tokens, you can actually get moving on those. Let's talk about other ways we have for making tokens, particularly artifact tokens. We have a Collector's Vault. So this can be a little bit of card selection, makes you a treasure token, kind of handy. Oltec Matter Weaver. So if you cast a creature spell, you're going to be making a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. So that's going to allow you to keep moving ahead. Or you can create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control. If you want more blood tokens, if you want bodies, you can make golems. Useful stuff. Arterial Alchemy. 2 and a red for an enchantment. When Arterial Alchemy enters the battlefield, create a blood token for each opponent you have. Blood tokens you control are equipment in addition to their other types and have equipped creature gets +2/+0 and equip 2. That's a super weird ability. The fact that it makes 3 blood tokens for 3 mana is kind of nice. With a Reckless Fireweaver or whatever, you're pinging your opponents. And then you can turn it into equipment to put on something, kind of neat. Well, we have a Smothering Tithe that's pretty potent. We have a Grabby Giant. So Grabby Giant is an adventure. Or it's for 1 and a red, create a treasure token, or for 3 and a red, it's a 4/3 with reach, and 2 and a red, sacrifice an artifact or land to draw a card. When you're going to have blood tokens and things kicking around, you're going to be able to make good use of Grabby Giant. And then we have Experimental Synthesizer. It's going to let you exile cards, and then you can use them later to go and keep the train going. All right, let's talk about how we're generating a little bit of card advantage. So again, you are in Boros. Yes, you're going to be able to cycle with the blood tokens, but it's a little bit trickier to draw cards. But if you're making goblins, Mentor the Meek, just the sort of thing you might need. You have an Unexpected Windfall, so you can discard a card and then draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure tokens. Yes, please. We've got a Minas Tirith. So 1 and a red, tap it, draw a card, activate only if attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn. You're going to have goblins. You're going to be able to go and probably trigger this to get you some cards. And then last but not least, we have a One Ring. This deck, because you're in Boros and it tends to be one of the color combinations that is probably ill-equipped to play with this sort of strategy on the long term. Sometimes you got to do things like put a One Ring in your deck to make sure you're going to be able to keep pace with the table. Because you're going to need the cards, you're going to need to do the things, and the One Ring is pretty handy in order to get you there. So, the One Ring. All right, let's talk about what else we're going to be doing. So, in order to generate more blood tokens, we're going to have Odric come in and out of play a few times. Now, it's expensive to have to recast him if he dies, but if you blink him, you're going to be okay. So, we have a Conjurer's Closet, we have a Teleportation Circle, and we have Nahiri's Resolve, which all have measures of that to some effect. So Neria's Resolve, I kind of like it. So 3 red, white for an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have haste. At the beginning of your end step, exile any number of non-token artifacts and or creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next end step. All right, so you can exile multiple things. If you have things with end of the battlefield triggers or things that you want to make use of, you can absolutely do that. Teleportation Circle and Conjurer's Closet, very, very similar text. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature card and then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So Odric goes away, Odric comes back, makes more blood tokens, and now all the blood triggers go off. All right, so that's how we're going to try and get some extra value out of Odric. But your opponents, once they get the gist of what you're doing, they're going to try and kill your commander. So what are we going to do to try and stop it? Well, we're going to have a Mithril Coat to try and give Odric indestructible. That's a really useful way to protect your legendary creature. Very useful piece of equipment. We're going to have a Savine's Reclamation. So if they remove your Reckless Fireweaver, they remove your, whatever you need, you're going to have a Savine's Reclamation to go and get it back, particularly since many of your things are going to be reasonably inexpensive to recast. We have a Rootborn Defenses. So sometimes you make a lot of goblins, you've gone wide, it's easy for your opponents to try and derail you with a board wipe. Rootborn Defenses is going to hold them off, make sure you don't end up getting destroyed. We've got Karmic Guide. So it is for flying and protection from black. It's a 2/2. Echo, so 3 white. So at the beginning of your next upkeep, you got to pay that cost or it goes away. And when Karmic Guide enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Well, you're going to have potentially all sorts of things in your yard, so you could get something back. Super useful card. And then we have Sun Titan. Everyone loves a good Sun Titan. Now, this deck's got a few other cute little wrinkles in it. Let's talk about the removal and disruption package that we have. So, we've got 2 pitch elementals. We've got a Fury, and we've got a... Where'd she go? Oh, maybe it's just a Fury. Okay. I thought I had Solitude, but I have a Fury for sure. So Fury is a good way to make sure that you can clear the board, get things out of the way. And if you can blink it and bring it back or recur it in any way, it's pretty handy. We got a Path to Exile. That's pretty good. Got an Abrade. That's also nice. Rip Apart. Those are all 3 are pretty useful cards to getting rid of things. We have Kabira Takedown. So this is a spell on one side, is a land on the other. But Kabira Takedown deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control the target creature or planeswalker. You're going to likely have a bunch of, particularly the goblin tokens. A lot of those end up being floating around, so Kabira is pretty good that way. We've got a Flare of Fortitude to make sure things don't die. We have Chain to the Rocks to exile things that are problematic. Raydane's a really interesting one because it can make a really good job mixing up your opponent's stuff. So 2 and a white for a 2/3 legendary creature god with flying and vigilance. So the keywords are useful. Snow lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Okay, probably not useful, that text. Non-creature spells your opponents cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. So you're going to make sure that your opponents have to pay a lot of mana for expensive things already, which is probably a good thing for you to tax them in that fashion. And then we've got a Battle of Baywater. Because we've got lots of small goblin tokens, this is almost like a one-sided Wrath. So 1 white, a sorcery, destroy all creatures of power 3 or greater, then create a food token for each creature you control. So you're going to make a bunch of food tokens, make a bunch of a bunch of food that are going to come into play, and Odric and all your token matters cards are going to care, and they're going to pop off, and then on top of it, you're going to wipe away a lot of the big things and hopefully keep most of your stuff. So pretty neat little wrinkle there. We've got some pretty good value right here and some other valuable creatures that are just useful to play. So Sarah's Emissary, 4 white, so pretty heavy for a 7 mana angel flying. As Sarah's Emissary enters the battlefield, choose a card type. You and creatures you control have protection from that card type. So you're probably going to give your creatures protection from other creatures so that you can attack with impunity and get your opponents dead as quickly as you can. Glorybringer, 3 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste. You may exert Glorybringer as it attacks. When you do, it deals 4 damage to target non-dragon creature and opponent controls. It's going to help you clear the road remove problematic things, dome things in the house. We have Stolen Strategy. This is a really interesting enchantment. So 4 and a red for an enchantment. Stolen Strategy says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as overman of any color to cast those spells. Your opponents are going to hate this, but that's okay. It can be really good. It's kind of like an Italia effect, and your opponents are not going to be appreciative. Well, we have an Inti. Inti is 1 and a red for a 2/2 legendary creature, Human Knight. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. So this deck ends up, because of the blood tokens, you're going to discard to draw, and then Inti is going to give you access to those cards some more, and then Inti is also going to allow you to attack and make things bigger with counters. Halvar, God of Battle, 2 white for a 4/4 legendary creature god. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. Do you remember that enchantment that made your blood tokens into equipment? Well, now they're going to have double strike. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment attached to a creature you control to target creature you control. So you can flip things around. And then on the back, if you want to get the artifact, you can play Sword of the Realms, 2 and a white for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and vigilance. Whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. So you're going to put, they kill your creature, you'll be able to get it back. We have a Goblin War Chief and a Goblin Chieftain that are going to make your goblins be a little bit more formidable. We have a Ragavan, because Ragavan is just good. And we have an Elish Norn. This is Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, and so she's a 4/7 that gives all your things +2/+2, and gives your opponent's things -2/-2, probably killing the board. All right, that lets you push through your goblins, push through your tokens, push through your creatures. Last but not least, we've got some interesting toys here that sometimes, because you are going to be struggling to cast your stuff, maybe you got to get an Elish Norn on the battlefield. You need to make extra mana. Well, Skirk Prospector, Ashnod's Altar, and the Phyrexian Altar are going to allow you to turn your goblin tokens that you've got into the mana that you need to cast some of your bigger spells. Now, this is not an infinite combo. There is no infinite combo in this list. It is eminently the most fair thing you're going to do, even though it has a couple of game changers in it. These are value pieces. It's the most value-friendly Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar you could ever imagine in a list. All right? So that is the list for Odric Blood Cursed. It's kind of a weird build. It's kind of taking a commander that's in a weird space. Boros Keyword Matters is not usually a particularly common play style, but I kind of like the deck because it does something different and strange, where your opponents are looking at you going, I'm not sure what you're up to and what direction I need to be addressing. Because you can go a couple of different ways. You can go wide with the tokens with the goblins. You can go with the damage from the artifacts and the Reckless Fireweaver effects. Sometimes you're just going to get them with value creatures. But you've got a bunch of different ways, and sometimes you're going to be pulling your opponents in different directions. It is a little more expensive. A couple of those things are game changers for sure, like the One Ring and the Smothering Tithe alone are annoying and frustrating pieces to be dealing with, but they do result in giving this deck enough oomph that you can play at a bracket 3 level. If you took them out, you're probably hard pressed to play this very convincingly because it is in such a weird play space. Anyway, that's what you think. Check the list down below in the notes so you can, if you want, have a look. You can check out all the other deck techs here on the channel. By all means, please do. Or you can follow us each and every week on the weekly podcast. We'd love to have more people join us. Please like and subscribe. Help us get to 50. We got 42 right now. We'd love to see 50 subscribers by the end of May. But so if you enjoy us, let us enjoy what you've seen tonight. Let me know. Leave a like and subscribe so we can follow along. All right, thanks, folks. Have a good one. We'll talk to you then soon.